Off the leash, off and coughing. Week 10 in the books. We're up to 10 now, aren't we?
And week 2 of the cough, or 3 or 4, or whatever it is for you guys.
For the Cleveland Browns, Mark Schwab, Leah Doherty, Ashley Holder with you for another episode of the big show. All right, true false question of the week. We started off the big program. We started off every week true false, and I'm specifically making a point to ask this in front of the Thursday game. True false statement: the Baltimore Ravens will win the AFC North this year.
Yes.
Definitive, right out of the gate. I like it.
Yeah, because I just looked at their schedule, and I truly believe, like, I think obviously the one with the Bengals Thursday Night Football is going to be huge, but outside of that, they played the Steelers one more time. I don't know if they beat them the first time. They did. They lost. They lost to them the first time. I think that they'll beat them at home. So, I kind of see them winning this one, because I'm not going to put the Browns winning out. I think maybe they go 1-1 between the Bengals and the Steelers. I don't know if I can say that they go 2-0. The Steelers, I'm not concerned at all about them.
When's the Ravens bye?
They actually haven't had it yet.
No, they have not.
I don't know when it is. Let's find out.
You got the schedule right there.
Okay, so their bye must be actually after Thursday Night Football.
Then they have a bye after that? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So after Thursday Night Football, they have their bye.
I'm going to say, just for another opinion, I'm going to say no. I don't think they will. I feel good about see, you say don't get into the gray area, but I'm going to get into the gray area.
You can dabble in the gray, but you got to give me a definitive.
My definitive answer is no.
Okay.
My reasons are all in the gray.
That's where that's fine.
I give the Browns a good shot against Pittsburgh. Coming up this week. However, I guess Deshaun Watson's getting an MRI on that ankle.
He's getting an MRI today.
And if that gets any worse, then that makes me nervous, and that could change my answer. But say Deshaun is the Deshaun that we saw against Baltimore. I feel good about them against Pittsburgh, and I think that they could potentially take this.
All right, so I'm actually going to say false. I can tell you a story where they absolutely do, but if I have to pick one, you're essentially choosing the Ravens or the field. A field right now where every team is above 500, and the Ravens have beaten all of these teams once already. However, they beat the Browns when the Browns were running DTR, and we saw when they played them with Watson, obviously, they lost. They played a Bengals team when Joe Burrow was on a peg leg. They'll play on Thursday, and the Bengals are still screwed up. They don't have their pass rush, and they don't have some receivers, but we'll see how that goes. But if I'm taking the Ravens or the field, I need to see now a definitive huge gap between the Ravens and the field. And here's the thing. I don't know if they're that much better based on what we saw Sunday. We saw a couple things on Sunday. They blew a lead. Like, they had no business losing that game at home. They blew a double-digit lead late in the game. They found a way to lose. I don't know if that can... I'm not sure why we could say, okay, they won't do that again, which leads me to this. They had that great start. And a lot of times, unless you're one of those, like, Kansas City Chief type, team of destiny types, I don't know if you sustain that. I don't know if they're good enough to sustain that. It feels like everything goes your way early. Everyone's healthy that needs to be, and nobody's figured it, whatever. And then there's a little bit of a coming back to earth. You've played your best football September, October. Maybe you don't, I'm not saying they're going to stink, but I don't know if they play to that level the rest of the season while the Browns are surging. The Bengals, bad loss against the Texans, but still could have a surge in them. I do think Pittsburgh will fall apart. So I'm going to say false. They could still do it. I'm not saying they're terrible, but I just don't know if they sustain this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely fell apart in that second half. Lamar just wasn't on point in that second half.
He didn't look like an MVP.
Yeah, and that's what it came down to, essentially, because remember, that score was still 31-30. So it's not like they lost a lead and didn't stay with them. They essentially lost a lead and then allowed the Browns to come back, but still stayed neck and neck with them.
The Browns, obviously, to their credit, I think I talked about this in one of the post-game reports I did. You have to credit their resiliency. It would have been so easy for them to go, okay, here we go. Down 2 scores, where we are, the crowd, that team, that quarterback, this, that, the other. There it is!
Oh, my goodness.
There it is! They didn't panic. They stayed the course. The guys talked about that on the Zoom, didn't they?
We play a sport where, it's more than 30 plays, on offense, they're going to get about 30, 40. Defense, we're going to get about 30, 40. So you can't hang your head on one because you got 39 more to go, So it's really about, seeing what the mistake was, correcting it on the field, correcting it on the sideline, getting back out there, getting the job done, and just being together.
Nobody's perfect. Guys are going to make mistakes. I know I make them. You just can't dwell on them. You have to move on. And I think that was very early on. We had to do that. We put ourselves in a hole. Credit to them. Obviously, they've started fast in a bunch of games, and certainly at home they've done that. That was not our intention to get behind early, and we did. But I never sensed from our players, I never sensed from our coaches, really anything where they were concerned about what was coming next. They just knew that we had to just hunker down and do our job. But that's what the team, I think that's what the leaders on the football team kind of set forth. They set that leadership example.
That first voice was Mike Ford, by the way. Not normally a guy we hear from, but he had an interception.
Yeah.
How about that? Mm-hmm. And then Stefanski, they're kind of saying all the stuff you would expect. But, it's one thing to say that. It is another to do it. And they did a great job of staying. The game's 14-0. Less than 5 minutes into the game.
Well, and I think the difference with this specific team is normally, I feel like with either Browns teams in the past or maybe earlier in the season, you would have seen them fall apart. I mean, the start to the Baltimore game was similar to the Pittsburgh game, to where it just seemed like chaos from the jump. I mean, the Browns looked, I said it yesterday, the Browns looked unsettled on offense to start off that game. That first quarter, it was like, here we go again. This is like Pittsburgh. You're already in an early hole. This game's over. They're not going to be able to come back. But we've talked about it with all the injuries and everything that this group has faced. And there's been criticism against Kevin Stefanski, the way that he has coached through all of this, the way that they have responded. Look at your O-line yesterday. Nobody gave them a chance, right? And the fact that you barely heard those guys' names yesterday, right, was a good thing that they weren't.
Outside of Hudson's 3 penalties.
Yeah, but Deshaun wasn't getting smoked back there. And so the fact that they are always able to overcome. You look back to the last Pittsburgh game, you lose Nick Chubb. You're like, well, what are we going to do from that? Well, now look at the running back by committee, how successful they've been making that work. Like, this group, time and time again, finds a way to get back up when they get knocked down.
And I think with the running back situation, I think is interesting because people only know about Chubb because Chubb is who they go to, right? You don't find out about any of these other players until someone goes down or someone's out for some odd reason or whatever it might be. So to make a 53-man roster is tough. A lot of people are stars in their own right. You just got to wait for the moment for that to be able to be seen. Now, talking about Deshaun, I don't like the first half Deshaun, right? He was 6 for 20.
This is actually where we were going next. So let me just tee you up. 6 of 20 in the first half. Comes back 14 of 14 in the second half for, I think it was 139 yards. Yeah. The touchdown. We talk about when is elite Watson showing up. I don't know if he sustains this. I don't know. First half was terrible. Second half against that team, 14 of 14, that's elite.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't like the first half Deshaun. I love the second half Deshaun. I'm sure everybody did. But I think he did a phenomenal job. I think he was able to be accurate. He was on point. He was focused. Do I think like he's now like some crazy, you know what I mean? I don't know.
You're not calling him Mahomes yet.
Yeah, but I think that was promise of like, when he's focused, he's healthy, and he kind of blocks everything else out, that he has potential to be very, very good. And that this offense and defense can finally click together when everything's working, that they could really be a dangerous team. Because even on on fifth quarter is when Reggie and Josh were saying this. Like, I didn't really even think about it this way. Like, 49ers were the best team, one of the best team in the league at that day, because them and the Eagles both lost that day. So there was no more undefeated teams.
Right.
They beat them. Then turn around. Now Ravens the best team in the league, pretty much up there. They beat them. So I'm like, it's true. Like, I mean, this team can come together and they can beat your butt.
Well, you look at too, I mean, what other team in the league has beat the quality of teams like the 49ers, the Ravens, and the Bengals. Yes, it was week 1 when Joe Burrow was, but those are some of the top teams in the league, and that's who the Browns have on their resume that they've gone and beaten. And I think to your point about Deshaun, it wasn't big chunk plays, right? It wasn't a 45-yarder to Amari or something like we maybe saw against the Cardinals, but like the offense was efficient and they were moving down the field and doing what they needed to do, and he was completing his passes, and it wasn't anything huge and flashy, but they were being efficient and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
The O-line was, some of that's try to get it out quick and do some things. And at times the Christian on the left side struggled a little bit, but for the most part, nobody would say that was terrible. Now we wait on Jones. They hope they get him back this week. But that was a talker first with Stefanski, right? I know after the game, Watson said something like he had no concern. Of course, he's going to say this, but he's like, he didn't care who they ran out there. He said they were going to be fine. It's easier to say that after you win. But what did the coach say?
I thought they, by and large, played really well. Again, there's always things to clean up. We had 4 sacks, really. One was on a quick, one was on an RPO, one was on a bad call by me on 3rd and 2. So it was really, I just thought those guys battled like crazy. That's a very, very good front, leading the league in sacks. They run a ton of games. They run them well. So I thought those guys were in tune in the pass game. And the run game, again, a very stout front. Wasn't easy, wasn't always pretty, but made some big plays in there.
And that was something that Stefanski also touched on, was just that, they knew the physicality that James Hudson brought. They weren't really worried about him. They know that he's played on both sides. He's been able to switch when they needed him. They know if he's starting, what he knows what he needs to do. If he's not starting, whatever it is, they've been able to play around with James, and he's been able to fit in there. And then they say with Jerron, they were really happy with how well he was able to figure things out, getting here late and, trying to understand their system and their plays and whatever. And then he obviously credited the coaches a lot of how they were able to get him prepared for his role in that game. I mean, I'm more impressed with Jerron because, I think his situation was a lot harder in the situation that he was put in. But again, this isn't a guy that just graduated yesterday. I mean, he graduated, I want to say, in 2018. So he's been in the league. He understands how the process works, and it is what it is. I mean, everyone's learning from Josh Dobbs.
He's made starts.
Everyone's learning from Josh Dobbs.
Everyone's learning from Josh Dobbs. I heard the Vol references. The Pastronaut is his nickname.
Shout out to Josh Dobbs. Keep going, boy.
He's been incredible. He's been fun to watch.
I hope it stays that
Didn't
way.
know where the locker room was, but didn't know.
I love that clip.
Oh, I missed that. I got to go
Yeah,
find
he was
that.
getting off the elevator.
And he had to ask someone where the locker room was because he didn't know where the locker room was.
Because I didn't even think about the first game that he played was on the road.
game. Yeah. And
That's
so
great.
they're playing in their home game, and he could say, and it's like, hey, where's the locker room? Where do I need to go for the
That's funny. 2 random things. One is funny, and one was a head scratcher for me about this game. The funny thing, and this probably won't get enough talk.
Was it your clip? You shooting post game?
No. That's a separate story. The Tillman block on Van Noy, where he just absolutely buried him in the turf. What? This is a rookie wide receiver who just absolutely destroyed a veteran and pasted him into the ground.
I saw someone share like some highlights on Twitter, X, or whatever we're calling it, of
It's twitter.com.
Whatever
it's still
it
the
is.
website. It's
Yeah.
the website. I refuse to call it X.
Oh, it is still twitter.com?
If you
Will
have
you
to
go to it?
If you have to go there, the website is twitter.com. I refuse to call it X.
Oh, they haven't
It
changed
is really weird.
it.
I just looked at that the other day, and I was like, if it's
I
X, then why does it say twitter.com?
It's twitter.com.
I didn't
Right.
realize they had
Yep,
changed
it
that.
is.
Okay, interesting. Good to know. So there was a little montage put together on Twitter yesterday of different highlights like that. And just, the Browns way out physicaled
Yes.
the Ravens.
Yes, they pushed him around.
Yeah, push him. And then you talk about like Njoku,
second half.
Njoku
Yeah.
just like plowing guys over, taking 2-3 guys with him. Like just the physicality that they were playing with. Like you saw that fight firsthand and how bad they wanted it. I mean, it was awesome to see. But yeah, I saw that all on Twitter, a whole bunch of highlights of it.
You know what? I think that the Ravens did. I think that the Browns did a phenomenal job, but not taking away from it. Not taking away from it. But I think that the Ravens shot themselves in the foot way more than.
And the Browns shot themselves in the foot a lot. The Prochet, Muff Punt,
Yeah, but
all
that was
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was tough. But I just think that the Ravens they really did shoot, because there was a couple of situations on there that they could have capitalized off of, and they definitely did. And then I also feel like because they started so fast and so hot, it's really hard. Granted, I don't play football, but I would imagine.
It's hard to sustain that at times.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's hard to sustain that for a whole 60 minutes. That is tough. So I just feel like they started so quick and they just weren't able to just keep going. That I think they were kind of depleted when it started that second half.
How about this, though? And this was the other point I wanted to make. For about a little bit of time there in the first half, it looked like the Browns were going to lose, and this will be the Keaton Mitchell game. Keaton Mitchell's had a little bit of buzz. If you play fantasy, you might know his name. If you don't know his name, you probably do now. Undrafted rookie, extremely explosive. As soon as he got to the outside on that first touchdown run, you're like, He's gone. They're not catching him. And he was gone. And it looked like, here we go. This is this kid's breakout game. And then they just quit giving him the ball. He dropped the pass in the end zone. All right, fine. But they just took him out of the game.
The Ravens completely went away with the game plan that was working for them.
Thank you.
Which made no sense. That's
right,
why
if Stefanski does that, he gets ripped up and down.
That's why I feel like that they shot themselves in the foot. Why would you go away from the run game that was working for you, and then you start throwing the ball? Yeah, granted, throw some passes, but the first two plays, no. You start throwing on third, and then you want to do fourth, whatever. But they went away with went away from what was working for them, and that I just didn't understand. That I feel like was kind of bad coaching.
All right, so we know what's up on deck. Pittsburgh Steelers, and you cannot lose that. You cannot win the game in Baltimore and lose to Pittsburgh.
That would be such a Browns thing to do, though. I mean, that's what we talked about in fifth quarter yesterday, too, is this something they're going to be able to sustain? Because I feel like it would be typical Browns to go and have a huge win like this, and then you come out and lose against the Steelers. They have to build off of this.
I think it's great for the Browns that the Steelers are playing Thursday Night Football. What are you doing?
I hit a wrong button. It's not the first time.
He's over there muting Ashley. He's like, I don't want to hear Ashley.
Start over, but you know what? I refuse.
I don't want to hear what Ashley has to say about this.
Leah, don't cut this out, okay? Because he's over here playing with buttons because he can't stop coughing.
That's the problem.
Mess with yours.
Now I'm laughing. Now I'm laughing, and it's getting even worse.
Stop touching mine.
Now I'm laughing, and it's getting even worse.
You're falling apart over there.
Like I said before, I was rudely
I'm gonna back away.
I was rudely muted. I think it helps the Browns that the Steelers have to play Thursday Night Football against the Ravens. I mean, yes, against the Ravens.
The Bengals.
Or the Bengals. Sorry, the Bengals. My bad. So I think like a game like that is really crucial for them, obviously, and seeding. So everyone's got to play in that win, and then you turn around a couple days later. Now you got to play again,
and it's a home game here in Cleveland too. Which
I think the Steelers are in a worse position. Like they made that schedule. That's messed up.
Yeah.
Like, really? You put them two back to back?
Another game for the Steelers, by the way. They were outgained and still won.
By the Packers?
Yeah. They were outgained by Jordan Love and the Packers. Just you keep trying to win a Super Bowl that way. Just go ahead, please. Just keep doing it.
What the advantage of playing here in Cleveland, though, Ashley, is you don't have those bugs that you deal with.
Exactly. I'm glad we don't have to go back to Pittsburgh.
Now, we do have some of those bugs here because I have seen them. One attacked me outside of my apartment. I sent Ashley a photo for evidence.
Yeah, that's right.
So I do think one followed me here. But it was we already talked about this, but it was insane on that field. Did you have any bugs in Baltimore?
Did not, but in West Virginia, I was swallowing them during live shots. So I feel like I got my quota.
I remember seeing that.
I got my quota.
That's horrible. I didn't have to deal with that in Green Bay. I feel like they all just died.
I will say this. I think it's important once the injury report comes out for Wednesday, what we know. Because of, for instance, let's just say, I think they said that Denzel wasn't in the concussion protocol or anything.
But it was
he cleared it.
Right. It was a negative. Right. But we still don't know
injury.
what's going on. So I think if Denzel's out, I think that's a huge problem for them
Thornhill
too.
also. He had the calf.
Dewan, if he's coming back or not coming back, and then Deshaun, whatever this MRI
if
says
someone's
going to
be out, it's like you almost would rather leave Dewan. I hate trying to say who's more important, but I think you need Denzel back there. You need Thornhill back there.
You need if you can get them all back. You need all of them back.
You cannot give Kenny Pickett an injured secondary.
Nobody hates Kenny Pickett more than Mark.
I love him. They could play him for a decade.
But here's the thing.
You just keep him comfortable. Get him a 10-year contract. Give him a small pen so he can sign it.
Who are the Browns tied with though?
Were they what?
Who are they tied with in the division?
They said tight.
Yeah. No, we're talking about long term here. Keep Kenny Pickett there forever, please. He's terrible.
Well, they winning though.
No, okay.
I'm just saying they winning.
Not against the Packers.
They beat the Packers.
No, they just got outscored. They outgained again.
I thought the Packers won.
No, they beat them 23-19.
No.
Why did I think the Packers won that game?
Because you still have too much Wisco in you.
Did they lose at the very end? They had the lead the whole time.
I don't know what happened. I was busy in Baltimore.
What?
I just know they lost. The Packers
Here's the thing.
lost.
That's the fact that you don't know what happened.
They
don't know what the heck happened out here with them.
23-19.
Well, aren't you glad you're not covering that Packer team anymore?
I think I would have known the score if I was still covering. Wow, maybe it's because they had the lead at the end, so in my mind I was just like, oh yeah.
No.
They won.
No.
Okay, I take it back. Sorry, guys.
All right, but to get us out the door, I want to talk about the kicker. Because
My
first of all,
favorite topic.
he's your favorite
of
guy in the world.
conversation.
He's your favorite guy in the world.
He is.
We talked to him after the game in an interview you did not see on 19 News.
You saw 11
Oh,
seconds.
you got 11 seconds
You
of it.
saw 11 seconds of it.
We had an
Thank you.
issue shooting it where it was shot in slow motion. And I'll tell you what, me and Leah trying to work through this while I'm a passenger as our videographer Al drives through the Appalachians in the middle of the night while I'm whipping around in the passenger seat trying to fix. This was no science project could be harder than this. Eventually, we just quit. You did get 11 seconds. Hopkins said he was like an arsonist that got to put out his own fire,
Right,
which is a great line.
Missed the PAT,
Right.
and then he got to come back and have the game-winning field goal. Yeah, it was funny.
Which is crazy to forget that the man had 12 points in the first half.
carried
he
the
carried
team
the
at the
team,
beginning. Yeah.
essentially. So I'm like, forget the missed PAT. The man had 12
Yeah.
points. They wouldn't be in the game if he would have missed them kicks.
I was pulling highlights early on for my show, and those were my highlights. Were a whole bunch of Dustin Hopkins field goal makes because that's all we had for a while.
Coach was talking about him on the Zoom too, right?
Yeah, he's been reliable. He's a trustworthy guy. He works very hard at his craft. Nice having a veteran that we trust him. He knows that we trust him. So really just a trustworthy guy that you know is going to do his job.
Let me tell you something, okay?
Yeah.
This man, Dustin Hopkins, has made
A lot.
24 or 27, I want to say it was. 7 for 7 perfect from 50 yards plus, and leads the NFL in points in 86. Gosh darn it, Stefanski, sound happy.
Well,
You ain't
that's
never
the
happy
coach.
about nothing.
That was
But
the-
then when you gonna talk about Deshaun, you want to hype him up, man. Hype your kick up.
The
I'm
best
sick of him.
move they made was bringing him in
For
and
sure.
getting rid of
Act
Cade
like
York.
it.
Best move, and there was talk about when they were bringing him in too that he didn't have great range. I remember people were talking
Right.
about
There-
that, and then he just had a career high here, 58 yarder.
So the only part about his day that should be looked at as kind of stupid, and this wasn't his fault, was the handling of that weirdness at the end of the first half.
The 60-yarder.
They're going to run him out for 60,
Yeah.
and then they decide,
Should have just let him do
should
it.
have just let him kick it. And then there's
and
this.
you know what? Stefanski was asked about that on the call, and
Right.
I should have put that on there as well. But he really didn't give. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it really wasn't a big answer of why. They just like, oh, well, I didn't just think it looked, it looked good. And
he talked
whatever.
about it after the game, too. He said, well,
Yeah.
they had Duvernay back there, who's a good returner, but wait, hold on. You send a guy out for 60, it just occurred to you they might put a returner out there?
Right.
And if he can hit from 58, he can hit from 60. And why is the alternative of
Exactly.
PJ Walker?
Hail Mary.
By the way, I don't know how
That's
it
a
looked
better
on
option.
TV, but I can tell you that ball looked like it was going to die on the 20-yard line in person. Like, he released that, and I thought, did he just throw his arm out of the socket?
Yeah.
Like, there is no way you brought him in just to throw that pass.
Yeah.
Because the 60-yard field goal had a way better shot
That's what
than
we were
that throw.
saying. Ashley and I were talking about it. We were like,
Yep.
okay, if you're
That throw.
talking about like percentages of what's going to work out, Dustin Hopkins from 60 yards out, I would imagine is a significantly higher percentage than PJ Walker.
Yes.
Let's just throw it up for a Hail Mary and see what happens. That was ridiculous. Ashley and I were watching the
Yeah.
game, and then I was like, oh wait, why did Deshaun leave the field? And we're like, oh, right before the half. Okay, whatever. And then Hopkins is coming out to kick, and then there's PJ Walker coming in. We're like, what are they doing?
That was totally that's one of those moments that Stefanski totally screwed up, but we're going to kind of forget about because they won the football game. But that was ridiculous. Like, you changed your mind because they had Duvernay. You never thought about that? And at that point, Deshaun had the ankle, so it's Walker. I get why Walker would be the guy because you can't use Watson.
Right.
But then that even should strengthen the case to go for 60.
Hopkins.
Because Walker can't throw that far. It was a
Right.
terrible pass, but they won the football. I don't want to harp too much on it. We get it at the end, but I
Should have
didn't
given
want
my
to make
man Dustin a chance.
Yeah, should have let him bang
I think
away
he could
from
have made
60.
it. I really
I think
do.
he could have made it
could
too.
have made
I
it.
mean, his career high was 58. He hit
Yeah.
that not too long ago, so I think he could have done it.
We'll never know.
At least we got 11 seconds of a soundbite in, and then I had to teach Mark how to unslow-mo videos on your iPhone
Oh,
once
God,
you
please.
shoot them in slow-mo, but we got that figured out.
Ashley, after this, I believe, is going to show me how this mute button works over here for her microphone.
We're just teaching Mark about
I
technology
can't
over
stand
here.
this guy.
Bye.
That's the last time I help you with anything.